The nonprofit MBA purpose is to provide new business insights and fresh creative ideas for executive directors and their teams that will help them improve their organization. Here is your host, Stephen Halasnik.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Halasnik. I'll be your host for the Nonprofit MBA podcast, as I have been for 9 years now. I am the co-founder of Financing Solutions, and Financing Solutions is the largest provider in the United States of lines of credit to small nonprofits. We've been doing it for 15 years. And if you're interested in learning more about a line of credit for your organization, please visit our website at nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Again, that's nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with Catherine LaCour from Blackbaud Giving Fund. That's BLACKBAUD. They're well known. I'm sure many of you know about them. And today we're going to be talking about how nonprofits can leverage AI tools for giving platforms. A little bit about Catherine. She is a purpose-driven executive with over 25 years of experience transforming organizations and advancing social impact. She serves as the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of the Blackbaud Giving Fund, leading its mission to connect people to the causes they care about worldwide. Prior to this role, Catherine served as Chief Marketing Officer at Blackbaud, leading global brands and marketing, corporate communications, and lifecycle marketing, including strategic. Catherine, welcome to today's Nonprofit MBA podcast.
Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate you having me.
So you would imagine that. Well, let me take a step back, because I do ask every single one of my guests this question since February of 2025, and that is, how has the current administration and environment in the government affected your organization or affected your clients?
Yeah, it's the latter. I mean, I think that we all know it's been challenging times for this space. I sit on the boards of several nonprofits that have been challenged with receiving grants, particularly if it's with international, international mission-driven organizations in particular. So I think that what has become important is the need for nonprofits to diversify revenue streams, to really identify ways to engage new donors in new ways. And I think that while it's been challenging, I think it has also opened doors and opportunities for nonprofits maybe in ways that they haven't before, because it is challenging this industry to think differently about how to continue to grow and have mission impact.
Yeah, I get you. It's been a challenging time. It's been, there isn't a guest I don't have on board who says, "Oh, things are fantastic." It just doesn't work that way.
No,
So,
there's, needs in the world keep growing, which means that the needs for all the people listening keep growing, and that means they need more funds. And more people are competing for limited funds. So it is challenging.
it is interesting when you correlate it to back when COVID hit and people opened up their wallets much more. And now I don't hear that as much. I was wondering when there's going to be some type of change for the better for nonprofits, but I haven't seen it. So
yes, it's interesting because I think, donor behavior has changed, and for nonprofits, sometimes I will always be important as a donor, but my network has actually grown in importance to nonprofits because now people have lost, I think, a lot of strong identity to a single cause, right? Now I'm more likely to give because you, my friend Stephen, have asked me to give. Now, that's going to make it harder for you to second gift from me. Like, you really have got to engage me and steward me along. And so the way that donors are giving, the way donors think about giving, and the way donors are finding information about nonprofits has changed. So nonprofits have to evolve evolve with the donor expectations.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's going to really piggyback into what we're going to talk about today: how nonprofits can leverage AI tools for giving platforms. Because I experience it a lot. I'm on a little bit more on the marketing technical side of my company, so I see it how Google and search algorithms and how AI is finding organizations now. They have had in the last 8 months, they've had 5 different algorithm changes in regards to how people are finding your organization, like my organization. And so search is changing. It kind of, so, today's topic about how nonprofits can leverage AI tools for giving platforms. I mean, it doesn't really, it relates more to what you just said, but tell me a little bit in regard to this topic, what we're talking about.
Sure. Well, we kind of live in this Amazon world, right? We want things quick, fast, and easy. And when it comes to finding organizations that are aligned with my passion areas, it holds. So, donors are increasingly relying on AI generated search results, on recommendation engines, and even workplace giving platforms to decide where and how to give. And you just talked about, how you need to stay on top of the AI tools, right? AI tools are going to answer a question. If I say I'm looking for an organization that has this sort of mission and this community, they're going to scan publicly available information. So that's websites, that's profiles on workplace giving platforms such as the Blackbaud Verified Network, that's social content, media coverage, even impact reports if a nonprofit has that. So, you alluded to this, but we can't rely only on traditional SEO or word of mouth visibility anymore. AI is now an important tool for helping nonprofits in this industry as a whole become more visible and responsive to donor expectations. But what that means, right, is that these nonprofits, we need successful AI strategies. And these strategies need to be driven by clear, consistent, and accurate content that these AI models can easily read and that they can understand. And this strategy may or should take tools that can prioritize organizations that are going to have complete current organizational data, clear impact language. You want transparency as a donor, so you want that transparent financial and mission information, and a consistent digital presence. That's on the donor finding the side. I mean, I think that fundraisers need to think about AI visibility the same way that they think about donor stewardship.
Well, give me the parallels.
Give you the parallels.
Between those two areas. Give me some examples.
Well, I mean, you want to be leveraging your AI to generate content that is effective, that is personalized. You want it to be clear and direct, no fluff, no marketing jargon. I mean, even your CEO bio is fair game. Every part of the website is fair game. And you should be using AI to understand data sets that you have, how you can visualize outcomes to provide engaging content and impact programs. And the same way you would find all that information about a donor, you would personalize the communication. You want to use AI to do that for your organization so that these AI models have all of that clear, consistent, complete data when somebody types in a search so that your name comes up.
Yeah, and for those, I agree. And for those of us who aren't, or those who aren't as familiar with SEO and search engine marketing, search engine SEO is natural searches. So, you type in a phrase and Google would come up with the organizations that would match what you're looking for. What's the big change is that was always keyword driven. Now, something that Catherine mentioned is what the new model is: authenticity. And so they want real people who have authority and facts, and that's how they're going to search. So it's switched now from keywords to what is authentic information. And so, I mean, certainly the first step is, fool around with AI and see how your organization comes up, if it comes up at all, right? What I want to take a step back with is tell us a little bit more about Blackbaud Giving Fund. Tell us a little bit about more of your organization and how you're kind of getting involved with this AI tool now.
Sure. The Blackbaud Giving Fund is an independent public charity. We disperse donations from individuals and companies directly to vetted nonprofit organizations around the world. So our mission, you mentioned at the beginning, is to bring supporters and nonprofits together to advance the state of giving. And since August of 2020, we have administered over $2.75 billion in donations, from all these passionate individuals and corporations out there to over 300,000 or almost 300,000 nonprofits. So that's who we are. And so what we're playing, or what we're trying to kind of support from a nonprofit standpoint, or where we can really lean in, is on the workplace giving platform. So when you think about, we talked about, at the beginning, nonprofits having to look at diversifying their revenue streams. Workplace giving is an amazing channel for nonprofits. So when I say workplace giving, I'm talking about donation programs that businesses offer their employees as a way to support nonprofits. So this could be through payroll deductions, through corporate matching gifts, through volunteer grants, or one-time or recurring online donations. And so the Blackbaud Giving Fund facilitates the donations between either corporations or individual to this vetted group of nonprofits. And workplace giving platforms have become major discovery engines for nonprofits and for donors looking for organizations to give to, because they aggregate verified nonprofit information. They make organizations searchable to employees who are actively looking at give. So let me give you some numbers. So over 27 million donors have access to workplace giving programs, and they've contributed $5 billion to nonprofits. And that's a 2023 number through employer programs. And nonprofits are often missing out on these dollars because they aren't optimized for discovery or for eligibility on workplace giving platforms. And workplace giving is an incredibly powerful donor acquisition tool, especially for reaching younger audiences and fostering long-term engagement. So, when you look at things like predictable donations, increased visibility, potentially credibility, stronger community and corporate ties, workplace giving is where all of that can be deepened. So if a nonprofit's information on giving platforms like Blackbaud Verified Network aren't optimized, if their website is incomplete, outdated, or difficult for an AI system to interpret, a nonprofit is risking becoming invisible to those 27 million potential donors that I mentioned.
And how is AI affecting your business? What are you guys doing? Are you utilizing AI tools or developing AI tools in your platform?
No. So we facilitate the donations between individuals, corporations, and nonprofits. So that's a largely financial relationship. We do use, on the Blackbaud side, Your Cause by Blackbaud, which is one of our partners, they're using AI in their systems to make corporate volunteering, giving, volunteer programs smarter and more personal. So they're able to use their platform to help organizations recognize participation patterns, recommend causes employees are likely to care about based on that participation. And they can help companies then match people with volunteer opportunities that fit their skills and interest. AI can do a lot of the heavy lifting, things like data cleanup, impact reporting, so that companies can help facilitate those connections with nonprofits. In general, I think AI, one of the benefits, both for my organization and for, broadly, is removing the friction, basically giving myself, the people in my organization, fundraisers, something they have never had enough time of, or never had enough of, which is time, right? Time to focus on work that drives the revenue. And so, one of the benefits of AI is removing a lot of the manual tasks that we see in our space, like list building, segmentation, data cleanup. AI offers the opportunity for development teams to shift their energy toward cultivating relationships, towards crafting those communication, those messaging strategies in a way that engages donors in more and meaningful ways. One thing I would say, and I say this internally, when we, if we use AI to help create some content for, some campaign or for, some opportunity that we're working on, treat AI like an intern, right? Trust the first draft, but review it.
Yes.
It's a lot. I mean, AI is, it's not meant to replace the human side, right? But it should, again, reduce the friction, making it, easier to spend more time strengthening the important parts, like the relationships I need in my organization, the impact that I want my organization to have.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard not to take everything that AI says as not correct. It's especially when you're getting into numbers, because honestly, you got to realize, everybody has to realize that AI is pulling all its information from data that other people are writing about, and people can start off with the wrong information that then snowballs to other organizations, which is thought of as true, and that's what AI is pulling from. So, I mean, I use AI a lot, but it's hard for me to sometimes say, you know what, let me double check that number and see where the source is, really. So I don't know if you can answer this question, but what are nonprofits that are really embracing the world of AI? What are they doing that you see, like the ones that are really advanced? I mean, everybody else is kind of just, we're all trying to catch up, right? Or we're behind, right?
Right.
The ones that are on the bleeding edge of AI for nonprofits, what are they doing?
It's a great question. And, it's using AI, it's not just, it's operationalizing AI around data. So I think many nonprofits collect data, but they don't operationalize it. So, and what I mean by that is like data should help us answer who is most engaged. Which donors are most likely to deepen their involvement with my organization? Where untapped workplace giving opportunities? Which partnerships or potential partnerships naturally align with our mission? So AI can help identify patterns that we humans might miss. And so if fundraisers start thinking beyond donation tools and start looking at engagement behavior, volunteer participation, corporate affiliation, reoccurring interactions patterns, like that's where some of the magic can start to happen. Strong data strategy that can lead to stronger retention of current donors, better easier stewardship, more predictable fundraising growth, because you've got more personalized and smarter campaigns that are keeping your donors engaged. So I think that nonprofits that are doing this well are using their data in a way that helps them react strategically, or be more strategic in their, in achieving their missions.
It's so funny. As I was listening to you talk, I was just thinking about using exactly what you said for my own company. And mine was different. I'm like, we're trying to market our company to maybe this helps the listeners, not what about it wanted to say, but the process. I'm trying to learn a lot more about how to get to this certain segment of the organizations that we help a lot. and it's like, yeah, I can go. I've been going on AI and getting lots of, how do I get to this segment and stuff like that. And I just thought, oh man, I already know where I want to go. I kind of just need a person who has expertise in that area to tell me where I can get it, the information. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, AI is still causing me a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Instead of getting to that person who's been, let's say someone who's been doing it for 30 years is like, oh, you just got to go here and they'll give you this segment. They'll give you the list, So as much as AI is pretty incredible, it still comes down to experience, people, right? It still comes down to people. I think that's the magic sauce, right?
I agree. It is. I mean, again, like I said it, before, but this AI is definitely not meant to replace the human, right? But it can help us be smarter. And one of the benefits, and you're saying this without saying it, but it's leveling. It can help level the playing field.
It definitely,
right? Yeah. Like you've got smaller nonprofits trying to compete with much larger organizations that have bigger teams and more resources. But now smaller organizations have access to tools that frankly previously required large teams or maybe even expensive consultants. And so when you think about, I mentioned kind of this big data strategy, but there are ways to start small, right? You just help get your donor communications stronger, right? Use AI to help with your content. You mentioned segmentation. That is a great place to start. Use it to help analyze your fundraising trends, improve your discoverability. So I think when you think about particularly smaller nonprofits, what do they often have? Incredibly strong impact stories. But the other thing they also have is community trust. And so leveraging AI to help garner all of that into really strong content, and then to discover ways to amplify that visibility. I think that's, there's a lot of goodness there and a lot of opportunity for scale. We don't have to wait for perfection before adopting some practical tools and getting some low-hanging wins that can have some huge impact.
Yeah, I mean, not to be self-serving or here egotistical. One of the things I do, and it's one of the reasons why I do the podcast, is because I'm good at asking questions. And from what I've told, I'm good at asking really good questions. And I find that skill set is so valuable with AI, right? That because I'm able to just unlimitedly come up with really good questions, AI is incredibly a great resource for me. So even talking right here, so have you said to AI, look at my website, tell me what are the common themes in this website? And, however you want to word that, and see what it says, because honestly, that's the way your viewer of your website's looking at it. And that's how it's coming up in search engines, and if it's not coming up the way you want it or not strong enough, well, then you got some work to do. And I always find, not to belabor this point, but, it's no doubt that for the last 15, 20 years, the whole thing about nonprofits has been about storytelling, right? And your website is your face, and that also transcends inside your organization from a culture standpoint. So it touches your donors, it touches your employees, it touches your donor, everything going around you. Agreed?
Oh, what you just said is, an absolute key takeaway. Start with your website, ask the system what it says, and then work with AI to optimize it. And like I said, don't take what AI gives you and then plop it right back on the website. Review it. But I think that is a great first step. Like, you want to understand what data is out there and how it is coming up so that you can, update it, because you want it to be accurate. I mean, one of the things that even with AI, or maybe especially because of AI, there absolutely is a role or a leaning towards transparency, right? I think transparency is becoming a baseline or donor expectation. And that starts with clear and accurate data from the nonprofit. So donors want to see, you know, they want to have visibility into, a clearly articulated mission and impact. And so nonprofits need to be able to clearly communicate and then maintain accessible information that's going to build that trust and show transparency for their donors. And transparency improves AI discoverability, right? Because that's a key piece, because systems are going to rely on structured and trustworthy data, like we've been talking about that. So all important points to make sure you understand what data is out there, and then make sure that you keep it updated. You've got a strong content strategy that is ongoing. It's not a one and done. This is something that has to be managed, so that you are creating that transparency, that openness in a way that, one, gives you searches or spins you up when somebody does a search, and then once somebody reads that information, makes them feel that you are a trustworthy organization that they want to get involved with.
Yeah, I mean, every time we're working with a potential client, we look at their website, right? And as the person who does that all the time too, I mean, everybody in an organization who's involved in approving a line of credit, we're looking at your website to begin with. I can tell websites that are, organizations that are very, they're small.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell ones that are well established, that just by their website, of course. And I'm sure your donors can too.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the face of your organization. And I get it. Listen, the last year and a half, everybody's been running around just trying to survive, right? But I've in the past, some other companies I've had, I know what that's like. And one of the things that's helpful is we're getting to a point now where you need to look forward, right? And I think communication, looking at AI, looking at how you're being perceived, it's nice to get away from the past and look to the future. It's been my experience that changes optimism, which is, I think, something that we all need a little bit more of right now.
It does. It's a beautiful statement, because it does, AI at the end of the day is the tool, but it does offer opportunities to grow, relationships. I think about, one is that kind of corporate nonprofit partnership. We've been talking about workplace giving. Like there's a real value that AI can bring in helping to strengthen alignment and accelerating impact, and those sorts of relationship where, the corporation gets transparency to elevate the impact measurement that it needs to show that this is a good use of money, in their CSR programs, and then nonprofits can use it to, show their data, their program effectiveness, the financial health, public sentiment, in a way that builds trust in a relationship and just strengthens those potential partnerships long term.
Yeah, we just I agreed, and we just talked about the idea of asking good questions. Maybe you and I can each come up with some questions that someone would type into AI, and so let's pick something. I'm trying to think of like I don't even know if we need to have a cause here, but so I'll start off. I know this is off the cuff, so but like one of the questions I would type into AI to learn more if you're a nonprofit would be something like, what other nonprofits offer, quote unquote, the same type of services we offer, right? That would be, and the reason why I say I just did this, and I was a little bit surprised with some of the organizations that came up that I hadn't heard of.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, man, I really thought I was tied into the space. And it came up with some competitors that I was like, oh, I never even heard of them. And then the problem with AI is you go down this rabbit hole, right? And you just start diving in a different area. What would be a good question that you think that a executive director would, or fundraising expert would want to type in?
I would approach it with the donor hat in hand. So
Yeah.
on, so if I were an executive director and I, to your point, I'm focused on X mission, I would want to put something in around, I am looking for an organization that blank, who's had, great or has had an impact doing, and there's probably something specific to your organization. And then I would keep personalizing it, maybe in your area or in your state or in, internationally, or, you kind of pick your lane. The key with the questions is being specific. I can't say word out. Being as specific as you can, because you got to think, I, as a donor, am going to be typing something. I like green eyes, blonde hair, and it's going to be very specific. So I would actually look at what your donor profile types are, because you probably have different donor profiles. And I would, and by the way, this is a great question to ask some of your advocates that you have in your organization, like what would you search for, and use those. But I would, for each persona, create a set of questions that you think that person would ask, and then put it in there and see what comes back. But I would go through the lens of the donor, and I would ask your advocates in your organization, like, what is powerful to you about an organization, or what do you love about us that you would search for and potentially try to find another organization, and use that. But being specific is key.
Yeah. And, another one that I would look at, and because I'm just curious what the answer would come up with, is I would look at the typical profile of the donor to your organization. Now, you should have a really good understanding. These are our typical donors. They make $1 million or more a year. They come from this area. They, you should have a
women of this age group, or men of this age group. Yeah.
And I would put that in. Where do I find, again, it doesn't matter if the way you articulate it's the best, but where do I find more? Let's say this. Where do I find more women who are millionaires who care about X?
Yeah.
I'd just be curious to see what AI would come up with.
Well, and know others in your space too, because I think that's a really good point. It's almost like competitive research, right? I mean, what are other organizations who are like mine? What are they doing? What events are they holding? Like, do we know how many people showed up to the event?
I like that. Yeah.
So I think they should be treating this like a business, right? Competitive research. You want to search your best customers, where they're showing up, what's causing them to give, what their passionate are, because they'll also pull from social media. So if I'm posting that I'm doing something on social media, or I'm reposting something that caught my eye, that'll come up in searches where, what kind of people are trying to, save the whales these days, So being specific, but treating it like a true kind of competitive project is a good mindset as well.
Would you delegate something like this? Like, would you give it to an intern? Well, that's not the best one. Would you give it to a board member?
And you mean ask them to do it? I bet, yes. I guarantee you the board members are doing it. Oh. I will tell you, I think, I just sitting in, maybe it's because I'm asking these questions when I'm on my boards, but my question is always, how are you using AI internally to remove friction? Because we are limited resources. Have you looked at optimizing the website? Because I did a search and I asked, what is this organization? And this is what came back. And it didn't really feel aligned with what I understand the commitment to be. So, or the mission to be. So you're
a good board member.
I'm a passionate board member. But I think, a lot of board members are doing that these days. So you want to do it first. Yeah. So you have an answer.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think if you're going to delegate some of it, I think you got to do it yourself too.
You want to see, you want to know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, executive director's time is so limited. right? It's you got to, sometimes they might be still trying to put out a fire, but
Your head of fundraising, development, or marketing communications, like they should be thinking about this. So that is when I think about the executive director. It's a great project to assign to a development, or your marketing officers to go out there, come back with do the searches and come back with recommendations. Where are we optimized? Where aren't we optimized? And what are some low hanging easy steps we can take to fill in some gaps?
Yeah, the good thing about that is you don't go down the rabbit hole that I just said. When you do it yourself, the person usually will come back to you with the really important stuff, and then you can ask them more questions, and then they'll go back out. And because it does take a lot of time. I mean, even hearing you say that, I'm like, have I done that? Have I used it enough? Because yes, I mean, I use it for, a certain something that I'm trying to do in my mind, but I haven't gone out and just really asked it a lot more questions. And I think that's probably a good use of my time. So listen, that was a great podcast. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot. Catherine knows her stuff. And I'd like to thank so much Catherine LaCour from Blackballed Giving Fund for coming on today's podcast. And if you're interested in getting a line of credit for your organization, please feel free to reach out to our website, nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Catherine, if anybody wants to get in touch with you or your organization, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, you can follow us, Blackballed Giving Fund, on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Our website, blackballedgivingfund.org, has some great blogs that I would recommend as well. We actually have a blog we did on the AI guide for nonprofits looking to reach more donors. We also have some blogs up there around optimizing your network profile and workplace giving platform. So we talked about that as an important channel. So I would encourage everyone to go check out the blog at the blackballedgivingfund.org site.
Great. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation, Stephen.
So I always end every podcast this way. I've done it for 9 years. It's well known that executive directors burn out. And I just want to remind everybody out there, we need you. You guys are helping us really solve the world's problems, and we really need your help. And, your employees need you, your family needs you. And just make sure every day that you're thinking about yourself first, because you're no good to your cause, you're no good to your employees, you're no good to your family, you're no good to yourself if you are thinking about everybody else and not yourself. So you should be thinking, what do I need to do today to keep my energy, rather it be meditating, praying, exercising, eating right, getting a cup of coffee with a friend. Just remember, prioritize yourself, because I know a lot of people out there are very giving, and you need to think about the long term. And so that's not my thought for the day, but just keep that in mind. Everybody have a fantastic day. Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit MBA podcast.